Hey, I can't hear anything you're saying. No sound. There's nothing. Can you hear me, Deborah? All right, Dad, you got to figure out your sound. Dad, yours still isn't working. You're going to have to disconnect some stuff and try to get it going. Yeah, he muted it and then he unmuted it. As soon as Dad gets his sound figured out, I'll turn my sound off and black out my screen so that nobody has to look at me during it.
So if you're just joining us, Bill's trying to figure out his microphone situation. He tested it, worked fine.
Okay, Christy.
All right, there you go. You're on.
I am. You can hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's working out.
I put everything to default. We did this just 15 minutes ago to make sure everything was working right, and it was no glitches at all. So sorry about that, guys. That was terrible.
Hey, Ricky, I like this shirt too. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mute myself. So in a few seconds, everybody should stop seeing me and just see Bill.
With that shirt, David, I said earlier when you couldn't hear me that you're giving away your identity there. You're going to get in trouble now. Be hounded by paparazzi when they find out who Superman really is. Okay, so welcome, everyone. Sorry about that. I tried to go on a little early so we could have some conversation, and it didn't work. All right, but we are all set. So Christy's going to be texting me every so often to make sure I stay on track. And then I had a couple things I wanted to show you before we get started. We've got these. So we're going on a family trip, painting trip, all that combined. And I'm going to be doing quite a bit of plein air painting. And we're going to videotape while I'm out there painting on location. So all of that's going to be in March. We're going to be adding those videos as long as they turn out all right. going to be adding those to the membership site in April, I suppose, when we get them all edited and up on the site. So I've been getting some things. I want to make it very streamlined because we're going all the way out to Monterey, California. So our schedule is going to be pretty tight as far as it's a long way to drive. And so I wanted to get some things that would make it much more streamlined. And I found these. I got this set of 6, 1, 2, 3, and they're from Panel Pack. I had not seen them before. I have some of those painting panel carriers like this from when I bought that one easel of mine, and these things work well. You know, you can slide your panels into those so that when they're wet, you can carry them home without making a mess in your car. And since we're going to have a vehicle full of children and camping stuff and everything else to go with it, and all my painting supplies, I wanted to find something different. And these are perfect for working with panels. So it'll hold either an 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch panel. And then it has these rubber bands. It's so simple. And these are all made here in America by a family. So they're all made individually and handmade stuff. And it comes with a piece of masonite here. So it's just like a frame. It's like putting a 2-sided frame. You just stick your panel in there, and then you can put 2 panels in each one. This is a 6x8 right here. And once my painting is set in there backwards so that the painting part itself is facing to the inside, there's plenty of space between the 2 panels, so they're not going to touch or have any problems. Even if you're Van Gogh, it's not going to cause a problem. And so I love this idea. And they're nice and sturdy. So you can just toss them in your car when you're done. You don't have to worry about anything getting smudged. And then I don't have to sit there and try to slide them down into those slots either. I think this is brilliant. And we've got all kinds of different sizes here. So 6x8, 8x10, 5x7s even. So lots of sizes. I went all the way, let's see, what do I have here? Up to a 12x16. Because we're going to have such a packed vehicle, I didn't want to get really any bigger than that for this trip. Otherwise, a lot of times when I go out on location, I'll go up and do a 24x30 or something like that on location. Occasionally, I did a lot more larger pieces 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when my style was a bit different. And I would go out there with 30x40s on location and paint. But now I've kind of gone in a direction with a little bit more subtlety and things in the paintings, and they take me longer. So I can't just go out and finish a 30x40 in half a day on location like I used to. Let's see. But I'm also getting some things like these, like what I have here with my microphone, some armature for, I've got to figure all that out as far as getting enough cameras. So what we're doing is we're actually going to get another camera so that I have a camera on my painting, one coming attached to my easel over getting the palette, and one on the scene that I'm painting. So you can, I'll be videotaping all 3 of those at the same time. So I can kind of pan back and forth in the eventual videos, so you can see the whole process. You can see exactly what I'm painting in video, not just a flat picture, not just a photograph, and also hopefully getting my painting and my palette as well. Now this is going to be in March, so don't know what the weather is going to be like, but we're going to be going through a lot of really pretty states. So we're looking forward to that. And then we'll also be in Yosemite, and I'll be painting Yosemite National Park while we're there. So anyway, that's what's coming up. What else? And hopefully all of you will be the recipients of our adventures as far as the videos go. So any questions before I get started? So I haven't been looking at the chat. Let's see. Nope, we're not a sponsor. Actually, we don't sponsor. We're not. Nobody is our sponsor. We don't get sponsorship from anyone. We're just there. If I see a product that I think works well, and then I share it with you. That's it. And with and we thought about all that in the beginning, as far as sponsorships and all that goes. And I'm sure we could, with the size of our group now, we probably could get sponsorship from some companies, but I don't know if we're not there. There might be some products that we'll put on there, but otherwise it's going to be more for like individuals, probably more than a company. I want you to come to my site and with all of that we do and know that if we show a product, you know that it is sincerely just a product that I'm excited about, and that there's no financial gain that we're getting from it. So we want you to have full confidence that what we're doing here is all for you guys, for your good. Okay. Oh yeah, and I bought some new rosemary brushes and started using them this week. So this is my first paint or brush order that I've made in at least probably 8 years. So I bought several different types, some riggers, and let's see, this is an ivory Egbert. That's what it's called. It's a lot like a rigger. And then some rounds. These are the mongoose. And then a couple of different types of bristle. This is actually a synthetic. It's an ivory. And these had great reviews. A lot of people said this is their favorite rosemary brush as far as something that approaches a bristle. They like this better than the actual Chungking bristle brushes. And so, and I love the Utrecht 207s that somebody said have been discontinued. So I'm excited about these, because a lot of times the synthetics, they have a little bit more, some kind of a spring to them that's really fun to paint with. So far, so good, but I haven't had a lot of run time with them yet. Overall, when I do get brushes like that, they last a long time. 10 years. Some of my brushes are 20 years old and they're still going strong. So it's not like brushes may seem expensive in the beginning, or even paint, but I order the big 150 milliliter tubes of paint, and sometimes those will last me at least a year, sometimes 2 years on an order of paint. And nowadays I probably spend $500 or $600 on paint when I have to order a bunch of it at once. But then, I mean, think about hobbies. You can't, like golfers, they'll spend a whole lot more than that in a year of golfing. So really the expenses as far as being able to paint, it's not exorbitant. It's a fairly mild expense-wise hobby for people, if that's what they want to do with it as a hobby. Okay, so we've got, hi, Miriam and Susie, Spike. See, Spike is in our home territory. We used to live in Rye. He's in Pueblo West, and that's about 35 miles, 40, maybe 45 miles north of where we were in Rye, Colorado. So we were in his territory quite a bit, especially all through the 90s, until I went back to finish my MFA. Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome, Tom. Sandy in Kansas, and that's where I actually finished my MFA, was in Kansas. Dominique from Montreal. All right, it's great to see all of you here. Actually, Harriet, as far as the big paintings on location, I do have I have one photo. You know, I didn't take a lot of photographs back in the old days. In fact, I think that actually worked to my advantage when I started out painting. I was thinking about that today. Why I was trying to think back on why did I paint on location so much when I was younger, when I didn't really know. I mean, the term plein air, it didn't really exist in art circles back in the 80s. And so, but I was painting outdoors all the time then. And that was my primary way of painting. so I kind of wondered, why did I do that? And, I think it's because I didn't have a camera. Christy had a camera when we got married. What is that? A Canon? Oh, I don't even remember what those are called. It used to be so common, but otherwise I didn't have a camera, and I didn't really have a lot of photographs, and I didn't like painting out of magazines. So I went outside to paint and painted from life. And I did paint from books once in a while, though. When I was in high school, my dad's an artist. He was a graphic designer, but loved painting, and brilliant individual. But he had all kinds of art books for me. And now I have probably a few hundred art books. I love books. In fact, I just, a little segue, sorry. I just got this one last week. Richard Schmid's The Landscapes. Ah, man, it's a really, really good book. So I highly recommend it. It's not inexpensive, but well worth the cost. Richard Schmid is amazing. But when I was in high school, I did pastel primarily in high school and some watercolor. And I would take the art books, and if I saw a picture that really stood out to me, I would use that, and I would actually do a pastel from the paintings in the art books. That's how I did a lot of my stuff. And Christy's telling me it's time to move on to the critiques. But otherwise, I painted from life mostly. So I would recommend that. I think painting from life, we can produce some nice paintings from photographs, even if we never get out and paint from life. But there is a tangible shift in the way that we see and think when we start painting from life. So even if it's just looking out your window, if you can't get out of the house, if you have a window, and even if it's just buildings that you see, paint that what you see out your window at different times of day, different seasons, and you'll start to observe things in a new way with a different perspective. So I highly recommend it. Okay, let's see, any other questions here about anything? Karen from Minnesota, Canon AE1, that's right. I thought that was it, but it didn't sound quite right. And from Sandra from Anderson, great. It's great to have everybody here on the webinar today. We had almost 100 registered, but I think a lot of those are going to watch the replay. That's pretty handy to have a replay. Okay, so let's get to I'm going to share my screen, and we'll go right to the Photoshop where I have everything all set and ready to go. And we can get to these critiques. So if there are any questions as we go along, I'll probably try to answer most of those afterwards. But if you have some, Christy can let me know, or once in a while I glance at the chat. But usually I'm looking over here at where I have Photoshop set up, so I'm not necessarily seeing everything that's going on there. So if you do have questions, if I don't answer them during the webinar, I'll at least try to get to them during the webinar, during the critiques, I'll at least try to get to them afterwards for you. Okay, hi Young and Janie and Paula, great to have you all here. And Karen, all right. Oh, okay, so let's go. Share the screen. All right, everyone can see my screen now and see the paintings. Is everything nice and clear? Everything coming through well? Okay, I will get started here. So this is Rick's piece. And what I really liked about this is that it takes me back into the painting very nicely. The way that he takes the shapes, goes from larger to smaller, and works this back in. We've got the warmer leaves up here in the front, and then it kind of gets cooler as we go back into the distance. So that works great. And then the color harmony works really well in the painting. So he's got the cooler here in the shadow areas, but he's got this nice play of warm and cool color temperatures in his leaves. So Rick, you've got a lot of that warm and cool in the leaves. You even got some of these little red warm tones in here, and then the warmer greens, and then you go into the cooler colors back in there. But then when you come to your flowers, they are more just cool, almost white. So it's as if you took the white and placed it over it, and in some of the areas the white's a little bit transparent and the colors behind kind of show through. If you add a little bit of warmth, like you've got some of these nice warm colors in your trees back here, so those actually, and they're very bright looking, those actually come forward more than your flowers. These are brighter and they're bigger, so they kind of stand out that way. But maybe adding just a little bit of warmth into those to go with, it would work well with the warm and cool in your flowers as nicely the way that you've done with your leaves. And then you've got this tree and this tree are like goalposts back there. So because they're both exactly the same, they stop at the same point here, and they both go off, and they're both very bright. See, these work well here in letting us go back to this one, which pulls us into the background, but then you have the goalpost. So I would suggest maybe even just toning down one of those. Let me grab, oh yeah, right here. Paintbrush, hello. Why is it not working? There we go, brush tool. Lower down the opacity, and I'm gonna grab some of your color back. Let's see, maybe this one right here. Grab that, and then just kind of tone this a lot bigger than that, huh? Maybe back in here. Just tone that down a little bit so it's not quite as bright as this one. And then maybe pull some, take it back just a hair. So if we grab some of this in here, and we'll clone that. Grab right in here and just kind of pull some leaves back over the top of some of that a little bit, maybe. Pull just to break up the end of the edge of that one. So it's not quite in the same plane as this one over here. And then maybe pull this one down into this area, just a touch, just here and there, so that it pulls away from this other one. So they're like on different, yeah, not too far though. Definitely not as much as I've done there. Maybe just a hair, just kind of giving the impression that it's coming down into the leaves and branches down in there, rather than a hard cutoff, because really this is all open in here. You've got very much an open, airy leaf feeling to it. So I would, rather than cutting each one of these off at the bottom, kind of pull a leaf in here and there that helps you feel like the leaves are, you have a plant coming up here and there on these trees. Does that make sense? And then you pull some of that color down in here, in there, in this spot. Not too much, but just so that it gives you the impression that the trees are kind of going down in, and then they get lost as they go into your landscape. All right, and then, okay, so those were the main things that stood out to me. Beautiful piece there, Rick. Charles. Okay, so we love Christy and I, Christy goes through these with me because she has such a great eye, and I think two eyes are better than, of course, two eyes are better than one. Two sets of eyes are always better than one. I love having Christy around to help me with that. So we go through these. It usually takes us a couple of days just to go through all the paintings and see the things now so that we can have this run smoothly. So, but that's why we have to limit it to 25. This is really a lot of time put into this for your paintings. So when I say we, I'm talking about Christy and I when we're going through these. We love the warm colors and just the whole setting here. It's very inviting. And beautiful coloration through your snow in these areas. You've got blues, and then you've got the lavenders and reds and yellows in here. So it all works very nicely. It just flows through there. they feel like they belong with each other, going from light to shadow, the way that you've done that. And it pulls us back into the painting very well. Then you have nice movement between that and the trees, the fields that go back into here and then up into the sky. So very nicely done. Now we're not sure. It almost feels, this feels like it's a misty day, but it also almost feels, and it looks different on my monitor here than when we were next door going through a lot of these. So just almost like smoke in here. I'm not sure entirely that way, which is just fine. But then that would almost seem like a kind of like a forest fire. But I wouldn't want you to do any dramatic changes because it is beautifully done. In fact, this shows up much nicer on my monitor. So I think Christy's, we have the same monitors next door, but I think hers is, the calibration's a little bit off. I didn't even realize that. I'll have to watch for that. So let's see here. I think in these trees back here, you do have some darks down here, but a lot of the dark is up here in the top. So maybe a little bit of the coolness, like in these lavenders, because let's see, it's overcast, so it's going to be a little bit cooler light, which means the shadows are going to be warmer. So if we, oops, wrong thing. So if I pull some of this down in here, and we pull some of that. You know what? It'd be better with the paintbrush. Just a little bit of warmth and darker than that. So I'm going to take that color. Oh, that's where did I get the green from? Here we go. There we go. So we're going to pull some of that warmth down in the bottom here of these trees a little bit, just to help us to feel like we can go back into those trees, as if there's some spaces back in there that are in shadow, but a little bit cooler, especially compared to here as we go off into the distance. And I love the color, so I'm hesitant to have anything change, but you have these trees here that are very vibrant and rich, saturated color, and then very quickly it tones off right here, probably from the mist that's back in there. But the mist is kind of coming down in a line through this part too. So that's just a little bit confusing to me a bit. So maybe if we pull some of those rich reds here into some of this down in this area, to get so that because this is much closer to us than the area is back in here. Not that one, sorry. And then kind of to help get the feeling of going off in the distance. Oh wow, way too much. Less is more, hey. Crumb. Rid of that one. Sorry. Fumbling around here. Kind of cool down the yellow as it goes back into the distance a bit. That'll help to start pushing that yellow back in there. Not too much, because I love the yellow that you have here, but if we can keep this a little bit warmer and then cool off as we go into the distance, it'll help to create that feeling of depth. Okay, so let's sum this up. It's mainly that I wasn't sure if this was smoke or mist, and because then it would kind of seem like no, that just doesn't make sense to me now that I say it out loud. So I think some of those little things, I wouldn't want you to disrupt anything, because it really is working nicely in there. So I think just the couple of little things I said there, dismiss that, work maybe a little bit with it. It's just that it is so abrupt right here. So if it is kind of a misty, like the clouds are coming down and settling into here, then I think combining this area of mist a little bit off into the clouds that are up here might help to give that impression even more, because it's very strong right here, but not anywhere else in here. So my eye is drawn to that a lot. I think that's what it is. I could not articulate it, sorry, or get my mind to figure out what was bothering me there. But I think it's just that this was a little bit strong compared to everywhere else in here. And it draws me right to that, even though so many other things in here are so nice and inviting that way. So I think it's that feeling of the clouds coming in there and moving and creating that mist or cloudiness that comes down into the trees. But maybe pulling some of those clouds then down in would help to really accentuate that, to help us know that that's really what's going on there. And then tone this down maybe just a little bit in here so it's not quite so bright. And it also pull it up, break up this edge right here just a little bit, maybe pull it through the trees so we get that feeling of that mistiness going in there a bit. Okay, so that sort of thing. And then pulling that, little bits up into some of the other areas here would help that. And then the one other thing, just these two black spots, they're a little bit out of harmony with what else you have in here. Everything else is so subtle and beautiful as it shifts in. And then you have just those two black spots. So just toning those down. Yep, I know, Christy, I'm taking too long. She's very good at keeping me on track. So I would just tone those down a bit with some of the warms that you have in here. That's it. Okay, next. Sorry about that, guys. I just lost sometimes I get a little bit lost. All right, so number 3, Hoda. Oh, great job, Charles, too. Hoda. So this is beautiful. Really, I love the variety of warm and cool colors that you have all through here with your leaves. You've got, that's very obnoxious kind of looking, isn't it? Way too big for your painting. So you've got warm greens and cools and cool blues in your leaves. Just a lot of variety in that. And then I love the painterliness of your flowers. They really nicely painted. So and a beautiful light and shadow pattern in here. So the things that stood out, the sky, because it's this bright tone all the way from top to bottom, it's really wanting to come forward, and it's almost competing with your flowers. So if we can take, and then you have these two strong blues over here that you've got little remnants of it in places, but they're just kind of strong over there to the side. So if we take some of that blue actually and tone down, in fact, I'm going to make that bigger, and kind of tone down some of the brightness in your sky back here to push it back some. That'll help then your flowers, because really the blue and the orange, they're harmonious as long as the blue is grayed down some. So just, where'd that come from? Get rid of that guy. Sorry about that. And actually, you don't have to necessarily tone it down as much as I did. Some of this is probably unnecessary, some of these. But just in spots here and there. And then maybe, especially down in the areas near the flower, warm that up some, or shadow that down some even more in there. And then your flowers then, because it's that concept of, if you don't want to go brighter on a bright, how can you make it feel brighter? And it's by putting something dark near it. And that can help then for those flowers to start coming more forward. That way the flowers become then again the center of interest, and the sky back behind just kind of complements that a bit. The other thing would be, you have these very well, the structure defined so nicely. And then you have, it looks like a different kind of plant on the side, but it's a little bit ambiguous. I like the colors that you have in here. So I might play with that just a little bit, because this kind of draws me down in here, just because it's so ambiguous compared to what you have right here, and yet it feels pretty close to us. So then I don't know exactly what's happening in there, and that's just fine in a painting. We don't have to explain everything in detail. It's just that in this case, because it's just in this one area right here, it becomes then its ambiguity becomes a focal point. It becomes a center of interest, trying to figure out what's happening in there. And it's really beautiful the way some of these things, like the light and dark in here, and the subtle little pieces of grass and other things that are flowing through there, beautifully done. It's just that it's by itself, and so it demands too much attention. So I'm not entirely sure what to do about that, but play with that just a little bit maybe. You could even possibly take some of what you've done here and pull it into some of these, but I wouldn't want to pull too much. I wouldn't want to pull attention down in there. So that's not necessarily the right thing to do either. Maybe pulling a leaf. I just don't know. I wouldn't want you to destroy that, because it does have a lot of beautiful stuff going on in there. But just be cognizant of that, I guess, and look at it over time. And if it doesn't bother you at all, then just leave it as it is. Or maybe pull some of that into an area over in here so that it's in another part of the painting. You know, maybe a little bit back into here subtly, so that it feels like it's going off a little bit far away from us. Not as much as here, but in a grade down kind of way. And that might help to integrate that into the rest of the painting. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful, Hoda. And now we have Paula. Okay. This bush just stood out right away. Beautifully done. And a lot of what you've done here in the water with the colors and things that you have going around in here, these blues and other colors, they're very painterly, nicely done. And I love those accents of blues here and the lavenders that you have in some of the other areas in the painting. And when I get back from our trip, I'm going to try to put together a little tutorial to put on the membership site and in the master course as well, that goes over how to photograph artwork. Just some of but just real quick, one of the ways that, because this glare right here makes it difficult to see exactly what's happening in the painting. And before I had the setup I have now with my easel, back in the old days, I would take my paintings and I would tilt them different directions until that glare was gone. So experimenting with that a little bit, and then you have to take your camera and get the same tilt. It takes some playing with it. And fortunately now with digital, it's a lot easier. It's not so expensive to do the experimenting. So with digital, just experiment. Take a photograph, see what it looks like, and see if you've got the lines squared up and all that, and if you've gotten rid of the glare, so that we can see all the beautiful color and value that's in here. When that glare comes across, it flattens everything out for us. Okay, so nice light and shadow pattern. Let's see. Okay, so we've got some really beautiful colors happening in here. The things that stood out, one are the forked branches that you have right here. They're very strong. There's no breakup in there, and they are just like that. It's like a fork in there. So with a bush like this, you could take, let me see, even here, just break up an area in there where a branch or where a leaf comes over the top of it. Like right here where you have this really strong leaf there, just go ahead and pull that right over the top of that and break up that branch a little bit. Pull that down inside. Especially here in the middle, you could push that branch down in there, and then that one is not nearly as, it doesn't stand out nearly as much. And then maybe this one over here, get rid of that one so that and then just keep like a part up top, somewhere like that. That makes sense? And then you've got, then this one feels much more natural coming up through here. You got that, but they're not like a fork in there. It doesn't pull you right down into this bullseye spot in the middle, you know, close to the middle of the painting kind of thing, or the middle of the bush or whatever, bottom of the bush. Okay, let's see. And then we had, oh yeah, I'm assuming that this right here is either something in your canvas or like you've painted over a painting that was there previously, because I see like this right here. It almost looks like there was a ladder or steps or, you know, something like that. So if this is a painting, and there's nothing wrong with taking old canvases and painting over them, but Winslow Homer, one of the greatest artists ever, he did the same thing. And he also had the same, that sort of problem where an old painting would start to ghost through his new painting. Sometimes it can take years. But if you have just like old texture on there from the paint, just sand that off. If you have a hand sander, wear a mask, of course, because some of these paints, you definitely don't want to breathe in the dust. But just take and sand down the old texture so it doesn't come through anymore. And then if you need to, you know, go and gesso over it as well with some new gesso and create a new texture on there. Let's see, that way that won't distract from your painting. When you finish something and you really like what you've done, you don't want to lose that. Let's see. And then this side right here, right in this area, you've got so much that's really delineated well with the tree and the grasses here, all of this. I can tell that there are rocks and grasses in here. When we get over into this area with your lavenders, it feels ambiguous, almost from here down, up and down. So I would say just come in with some defining things, like even grab a rock, like a rock like this. In fact, if I just take and let's clone that real quick. So I'm going to clone from here. I'll clone this area right here. We'll pull that rock maybe up into this area. Oh, we probably need some more opacity than that. So let's see. Oh, it got off. All right, so starting there, I'm going to put a rock in here, just like that. Uh-oh, my time's up. Okay. And that's terrible. But sort of like that. Just pull some rocks in, some grasses, like the grasses that you have down in here. Pull some more grasses up in there. Just like that. And start to define out some of what you've got in this area a little bit, just to give it some structure in there. Okay, good job. Nice job, Paula. Beautiful. Okay, Judith. If Christy doesn't keep me on track, then we end up going 3 or 4 hours, and that's a long time. My voice just doesn't seem to handle that very well anymore. Okay, so Judith. And especially since I have an art show this evening, I don't want to be talking like a frog when I get there. That wouldn't work out too well. An art show, if any of you are in Indiana, the Castle Gallery has their Valentine's show tonight, and it's really going to be a nice show. It's worth going up for to see that. It's from 6 to 10 tonight. Okay, I think I better start drinking water through this. Let's see. So Judith, that's a fun effect. I have not seen that before. I've seen, you know, like the frames that are set into a shadow box and that sort of thing. But I've not seen it done exactly like this before. You have some beautiful transitions from like the blue. Oh, let me get rid of that. Like going from the blues into your yellows. You go from these nice rich blues in the shadow down in here to softer and lighter up into the yellows. That's really nice. I love the way you've done that. And then I like this rock with the light on it. Just makes me want to go out there and lay down on it and just relax out there. So I love that. Uh-oh. Let me see. That one cannot be I've run out of time because Sorry, bring up that first pointer you used that was glowing was easier to follow. Oh, okay. Oh, good deal. Well, that's good to know. Like this. She's saying you can see this better, huh? Let's see. Let me see if I get a red. Oh, it doesn't make any difference. Okay. So there we go. I don't know what that's the cloning tool. So we'll go with that for a little while. Okay. Let's see. What else did she say here? Oh, that wasn't Christy. All right. Let's see. So, Judith, a couple of things that we were unclear about in here. This rock right here. In fact, you know what I'll do is I'll put some circles around it like this with the red pointer tool. So right here in this area, I'm not sure if that is a rock that's down in the water right here, or if that is a rock that comes from this rock, comes around, and then this is like it's up in the air and we're looking through it at the water behind it. And the reason for that is because it's attached to this rock down in here. And yet you see the water back in here. So cutting this rock off from, that would work. So if we take this right here and we pull up through, and that becomes a separate rock right there. And then that rock, then you do what you've done with the others, have that shadow area down in there. That can help. It's like this. Pull some of that shadow down into the bottom of this so that it's in the water like that. Will then help that to become a separate rock back in there rather than feeling like an outcropping that's sticking up out of the water. So same thing with what you have right here with this little piece of rock. Feels like the water's coming in here, but it's almost as if the water's going up onto the rock. So pulling some of this rock down, and then this one, oh, sorry, wrong thing. And some of that shadow that you have down towards the bottom, or maybe, possibly, but not quite as strong as what I've done there. So a little bit lighter than that, a little bit softer, like this color over here, maybe. Just a little bit of soft transition there to the water would help that. And then this one coming down in, you've got all these reflections in here, which if you did that, you'd probably have that same kind of reflection almost at the bottom of this rock right here. Does that make sense? So that it feels like this rock is actually down in the water as well, just like you have these down in the water. Okay. And those were the things that stood out to me. So, all right, beautiful. You have a lot of really nice things happening in there. And I love the way that rock just goes, just that part right there is very helpful for the painting overall, because that helps to move us off into the distance. And then you've got that transition right there too, that soft area right there. So that light rock going off into the distance, that works very well. That's excellent. Okay, Spike from Colorado. This has a really wonderful overall composition to it, and feeling. I feel like I'm up on one of those bluffs in Colorado overlooking everything. So got excellent light and shadow in here. You can see the lights coming from the right, and then nice shadow on the left side on everything. So I really like this. Okay, I've got to get that line back, don't I? Let me see here. Make that a bit bigger. Okay, I love this line back in here. So I'm going to get rid of that now so you know where I'm at. But basically from here over to here, that's really nice and soft and blue, and it pushes off into the distance very well. So I would love to see that same thing over in this area, because this spot blend. It's almost the same value and color as what you have in these pine trees right here. So and even taking and softening that out a bit with some of that cloud that you have, because that really feels like it's a long way off in the distance. So just softening down, and maybe even just a little bit in some of this back in here, even soften off the edge. That will really help to push that even farther out there and really give that sense of distance there. So taking some of those those beautiful blue colors that you have, lighter colors, and pulling that into some of this back in here will help to separate those fields off in the background from your trees, and it'll help to pull these trees forward. And then if we take the color from your tree and pull a little bit of that over the top of what you have there, just like that, that will really help to separate those trees close to us from what you have there in the background. And it doesn't have to be much. It can be very subtle that way. It's like that. Push some of that back in there, and that will help to push all that off there into the background more. And that was really the main thing. I like that your rocks here are going in different directions. You know, you don't have they're kind of close, but this one, because it's long and it's a little bit different angle, that works with these two. So good job. Great. And I love that you bring in some warmth into the reflected light coming into these rocks. So, okay. Otherwise, you've done a great job with the different sizes as far as, or heights, I guess, in here. And then this little one down in here helps to start pulling us down the hill, but it doesn't demand too much attention. I don't feel like I'm just drawn right down to it. And yet it's enough that it helps to let us know that the bluff keeps going on down a hill that way. So I like that a lot. All right. Dominique. And, you know, with each one, it really, a lot of times it's just a couple little things that can, to help really pull it together and make it complete. And remember my disclaimer, I could be completely off on that too. So take what I say as a jumping off point, where maybe it's a good spot, or actually more like one of those turnabouts where you're out. If you've ever been out on more of a big hill area or mountain area, and they have those, when you're going along the highway and there's nowhere to pull over, so they make those little round out things that you can stop and kind of look out over everything and get the perspective nicely. Think of what I do here with these critiques like that. You can pull off the highway a bit and get a different perspective for a minute, really get a good view of things, and decide if you like what I'm saying about it. If you don't, completely ignore it and go in a different direction, because there isn't an artist out there that's not fallible. We all make mistakes, and sometimes we're just not seeing things clearly. So don't take what I say as gospel by any means. Really think about it, ponder over it, turn your painting away to the wall for a few days, then turn it around and look at it again so you can get a new look at it like that. Okay, Dominique, very fun painting. A lot of just great brushwork and texture in here. The texture, oh, can't see that, can you? Okay, so like the texture, oh yeah, okay. Sorry, keep forgetting what I'm doing here. Right in here, texture like that. That's always been a huge thing for me. I love that kind of texture in a painting. So, and you've done that, you've handled it really nicely. It looks like you probably did that maybe with a palette knife or something, dragging that a bit over the top of the paint. That can be done with a brush or a palette knife, but a lot of times the palette knife can get a nice clean color, dragging across some of the other colors and break it up like that. It's beautiful. And then I love the pinks. just these pinks right here in these yellows really make that filled. It's just like the crowning touch on there, the crowning jewels in there. It works beautifully. So do not lose those. And you didn't overdo it. You didn't overstate it with those. There you have just enough to really add some beautiful color into this filled, so that it tones down the oranges that you have in here, but you didn't overdo it. So I love that. All right. So there is this line across the field here. I know that you have broken it up, and so you've done an excellent job of breaking that up. It's just that it is, and that's not always a bad thing either. So I wouldn't be drastic with what I'm saying right now. Don't take this as you've got to completely disrupt things. So we're going to go with something like this. Like I love where you've got this little bit of grass going up over that. What's it doing here? Oh, did I define that? Click. So coming in and just pulling some of that. Let me start down lower. Pull some of that maybe just here and there. Oh, that's really too much. Let me see if I can get a soft area. Oh, that's what I need to do. Reduce the opacity. Okay. So just remember, I meant that with a reduced bit. So just a little bit more in some of those areas to break that up a bit. Because I love the way you've done an excellent job with, you've got the darker over here, and you've really changed up the value and the color tone as you've gone along. So just maybe even just a couple of little touches here and there, not as much as what I did right there in that area, but just a little bit in some of those spots. Kind of like what you've done over here too. You know, you've broken up that line by it rounds down. So I don't know if you can see right in here, for those who haven't seen, the way that rounds, it has undulation to it. It goes up and down rather than just straight across right there. So not quite as, in the same pattern necessarily, but just here and there, just like that, little bits to break that up. And then, oh yeah, and then you've got these two trees right here are beautiful, really well done with your light and the shadow. You've got these nice warm highlighted areas and the cool shadows, different colored temperatures working through there. So I loved what you've done there. So, but they're kind of like twins out in there. So you've got two trees right here that are almost that way, and then you have two trees right here. So maybe just like making this one possibly a little bit taller or a little bit shorter, or one of these a little bit shorter. Something just to break that up a bit, or bring another one in like what you have here. Pull some of that so that it's not just that one right there. Does that make sense? Or so that those two don't feel just like twins in there. Let me see if I can get that really bright. There we go. Oh, wow. That's way too much. Less is more. There we go. Just so you can kind of, it's not like twin spots right there. Does that make sense? Otherwise, it pushes back really well. Beautiful. Excellent job. Okay, let's see. So those were the things that stood out immediately. All right. What was that? Is that telling me to move along? Move along. Nothing to see. Well, there's plenty to see, obviously. Okay, good. I'm back on time. Christine Benjamin. This has a very wintry feel. And so that's excellent. And Christy and I both talked about the sun here. I like that you didn't just do a circle there, because I've lived in a lot of snow country, Western Montana, Glacier National Park area, up in Alaska, all through high school. I've been through a lot of different scenarios with snow, and that's what you can see that. It's like the light veering off from the sun can go in all these diffracted, what is it, directions like that, not necessarily like just a sphere out there. especially when you get some of that ice crystal stuff that happens where it's almost wanting to snow, but it's just like crystals. That's happened in Alaska when it would get too cold. You couldn't get snow. So it would want to snow, but it would just be like crystals in the air. And all those crystals in the air can really do that to the light. So that's beautiful, what you've got there. And the sun, I mean, the shadows that are coming down in here, especially over in, let me get back to the red. So especially in this area down in here, excellent. It's beautiful the way that works. And where's my opacity? Oh, I'm at 100%. Oh, I see. Now, the thing that stood out here is you've got your cross-country skier in there. And where the cross-country skier is, the shadows, so you've got these shadows that are just very nice and they soften out as they go out. But then you get over into this area where the skier is at, and the shadows start to become, I think part of this is that you have the little burrows that come, the trenches that come from the skis or from drifts in the snow or something else that creates a trench there that's making a shadow. But I would be inclined to eliminate that. Just take some of those shadows out, even if they're there, because they become too strong. They're too distractive from your main center of interest, which is your cross-country skier. And then I would be inclined as well to take these shadows that you have coming off of here and probably going, this shadow, rather than going this direction, would probably go a little bit more this direction. But you could take like this tree right here and take that shadow and come off this way, but do it with a softer. You know what? In fact, I'm going to do that. Not quite so strong of an opacity. So some of the blues and lavenders that you have in here, a little bit on the soft side of things. And shadows are always going to be a lot stronger at their origination point, and especially in a time like this with snow, all the little crystals of snow, even in the snow itself, are going to help. The farther away it gets, the more it's going to diffract that and soften as it moves out. So just maybe kind of soften that out a bit. And then this one right here, just take that away a bit. And that way, we aren't feeling like it helps to take a lot of that activity that's happening right here and help us to concentrate more on your skier than on all those shadows that are going all the way around or going all over the place in here. And that helps to calm that whole scene and gives us really that feeling of being out there with that skier. Of course you can brighten this up a lot here like that. Okay, let's see, was there anything else? Oh yeah, the left side of the pine tree right here, you have this beautiful, let me get back, sorry, to a color you can see for those who are having trouble seeing. So with this tree right here, you got all these beautiful ins and outs in the tree. You know, that I love that. Works excellent. And then you come here, you've got one here and a little bit there, but then it kind of just abruptly goes down in a sharp line down the tree. So if you can take some of that, just like this, and pull some of that out. Oh, let's get our opacity up, hey? Into some other areas, especially down into here, even with just the snow that's in here. Pull some more snow out, you know, as like that, and then out into this area. Pull some of that. Even coming out, you could almost come all the way off in some of these places, even if it's just another little pine tree coming off the side right here, you know, just to break up that line a bit in that area. And we come on top with some snow. Okay, just like that. Just kind of pull some of that, and you probably want some of that shadow off since it's away from the sun. Oh. You know, I'll do better with the brush than with that. So some of that shadow color on the snow back here, because it's in the shade, pulling back in there, that sort of thing. And really get that feeling that that tree has the kind of shape that you have on the outside edge. Okay, time to move along. Hopefully that helps. Beautiful job, Christine. It's a nice piece. Okay, Ricky. I love this little bird. You got so many different colors in here. And I like that with between the light and the shadow and all the little feathers and things. So that's a beautiful coloration in your bird. Now, the things that I wonder about in here. Okay, your branch, I'll grab my color. This branch right here and this branch right here are very natural looking. Okay, so if anyone couldn't see that, this branch and this branch, they really are, they feel like a thorny twig or branch sticking out there. You got beautiful difference in coloration of light and value in there. Sorry, color and value changes, or with the darker spots, the lighter highlighted areas like this, those work really well. And the way that you've done some of your thorns with the lighter part and the shadow part on there. So I like that. What I thought about was that they form kind of a frame around the bird, and it's rather than framing the bird in a way that we want to look at the bird, they're very dominant. So they're almost taking away from the bird. So maybe eliminating a few of those would help, so that this would then feel like a branch up above, and we wouldn't be distracted so much by all the branches everywhere in here. You know what? Get the flow down. And actually, this is where the clone tool would be very handy. And my tool changes a bit because everyone's paintings are at different sizes. So that's why I have to keep switching sizes and everything. All right, so just kind of change up some stuff that way. Maybe disrupt that a bit. See, just even taking that out, now we can really focus on the bird right there. And then these ones over here don't feel quite so, it doesn't feel like a frame around it anymore. These almost feel much more natural coming up in here, as if we're in an area where there's twigs and we're looking through and seeing the bird. Now, the other thing is, I think, sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Sorry about that. That's very loud. I believe that your bird is in water, but I'm not positive because and water can be very green like that, but there's no real reflection of the bird into the water. So I can imagine all of this being green reflection because it's surrounded by like trees and things that are all around, or it might be some of that mossy algae-like water that's there. But you're more than likely going to get some reflection. Why is that so strong? I thought I pulled that down in opacity. You're going to get some of the reflection of this bird down in the water down here as well, if it's in water. Just like that. And that will help it then it gives it a transition and helps it to feel like the bird is actually in water, if it is. Let's see. And those are actually the two main things, because you have a lot of fun textural qualities and things here in what I think is is water in there. So if it's not water, then you'll want to make sure that the viewer knows that it's not water, especially by bringing in more of the bird. If it is water in there, then maybe just some subtle reflections coming down in here, and they don't have to be bright like the bird, but something that brings it down in there. Okay. Great piece though. Very fun. Thank you, Ricky. Okay, Sue. I love that you put the children in here. That really gives excellent scale to the painting. So here, that's not working at all. Let's see. Oh, we're still on. Okay. So right here, these children give scale to the overall park. So that was a very nice touch and nice movement in the children going back. And I love the the painterliness of your path right here. It's not just a hard lined, it just feels like it's well worn. People walk back and forth on it quite a bit. So, and it's because of the transitions that you have between the, like in this area right here, it's much lighter and a different treatment than the area right here. So that's excellent. That is what makes a painting feel natural. You've done a great job right there. So the areas that I might focus on in here would be this dark spot right there. I feel like it might be a tree or a shadow. I don't know which one. And if it's a shadow, it's very dominant. It takes away from the children down here, which is the focal point. It pulls me right up into that shadow up there. So softening that down, pushing it back. If it's a tree, define it more like a tree. Like if we take this and kind of make it into like a pine tree maybe. So I'm just going off of two different scenarios. If it's a tree, pull some tree-like aspects to it, and then maybe soften down some of the so it's not as stark in there, like that, and help it pull away from the area that's behind it. So one of these two, they both feel like they're kind of competing with each other as to which one is coming towards us and which one's pushing away. So if you can push those areas back in or back away from us, so that this tree either feels like it's on top of the area back behind, or vice versa. Or if it's supposed to be a shadow, just reducing that down some so it's not so strong. Same thing with the area right here, right behind where the kids are heading to. It's almost like it's a hole in there. It's so strong. So I would just lighten it up with the colors that you have already here, and maybe pull some of your other colors back into it in different places, because you have such a beautiful variety of light and shadow going throughout the park, very natural transitions. And then suddenly you had that space there that was kind of, it didn't, because you have the shadow that comes off of this tree, but I wasn't sure what would be causing that kind of a strong shadow right in that area. So just toning that down some helps to give an overall really nice feeling to like you have in the rest of the park. Okay, let's see. Was there anything else I had? Nope, those were the things that really stood out, because it has a beautiful feeling to it. Makes me want to be in that park right now. Okay, so let's move on down. Let's see if we do 18. Do we have 12 in there? And yeah, we can go even a couple more, huh? Okay, so Susie. And I know Susie well. She is a very accomplished painter, as you can see from the work here. Her last couple of paintings that we've seen, she really knows what she's doing. So a lot of what we do with these critiques is just sometimes just little things that we need just a second eye to help point out some of the things that we've become blind to. I have to have that from Christy on all of my work. And even with some of the blogs, someone pointed out with my hollyhocks that a lot of them, I don't have the hollyhocks going around the stem. A lot of them are facing towards us. I didn't even notice that. I was having so much fun with just putting all those hollyhocks in there. And I have some sideways, some coming forward, but yeah, I get caught up in a certain way of thinking about it and don't even realize that's where having someone else look at it is just an excellent thing to have. So, okay, so Susie, I love the sky, the way that the colors, just beautiful colors in there. And the way that you've brought those colors into the road and into the field. So that is excellent. Really gives a beautiful harmony to the whole painting. and just excellent movement in it. Everything points us up into these clouds, and yet we still get to move around and move back into the painting again. So excellent job on there. The one main thing that stood out to both of us is this house right down in here. Oop, grab that color. Okay, this one down here. And I would be inclined, because it's kind of pulling forward to us. These ones all blend into the trees back here so nicely. And then this one comes forward, and it almost feels out of place a bit. So I'd be inclined to just take it out and have your filled here instead. Just like you have there, because these all feel very natural. They move you to the area here, and then this filled no longer feels, it just feels like the filled there. Everything, I don't know, it seems like it's less distractive that way in the painting. And then Christy just pointed out the pistol that you have down here on the side. I like the breakup of spaces, but maybe because you have the barrel of the gun here, the handle over here, the little area for the trigger. So maybe just softening that down a little bit in some spots like that, so you don't get rid of that change of colors and values there completely, but just getting rid of that feeling of a pistol down in there, a handgun. And that was it. I mean, I don't know what else I would change about that. It's just a beautiful piece. So nice job, Susie. All right, Lucille. Wonderful water. Very natural feeling. You've got so much going on in here. Oh, I'm glad to know. I just saw the comment change over here. I'm glad to know that gun wasn't loaded. That brings a lot of comfort to all of us here, Susie. Thank you. All right, so Lucille, this water is masterful. Let me get back to my color. The line back here of your water, it undulates. It's not just a hard, strong, straight line across there. Whoa, that took off, didn't it? Because a lot of times people will take a line and they'll just make a nice straight line like that going across. And that, you can have that with water, especially when it's a really kind of a calm day. But I much prefer to see like there are waves out there in the water. So you did a great job with that, and it really flows back into the distance nicely. The things that stood out are this. Do I have my color? Okay. Let me get my opacity up so you can see what I'm doing. I want everyone to be able to see where I'm at. Okay, so I'm following this line of the shore right here. And then I come to this little area, and you get those inlets. I know, growing up in Southern California, I love the tidal pools and all that sort of thing. But it almost feels out of character with the way that your waves are coming in here. So I would be inclined to just eliminate that altogether. Not even have that in there, and then have the nice transitional shore areas that you have in other places in here coming in, rather than that strong spot. Maybe pull some more of your water up into here a bit, but not just a little blue finger sticking out there. And then, and I don't necessarily want you to come in and have a bowl right here. So maybe pulling in, taking some of that out a little ways, even, like that would work, but just not quite that finger that was there. Maybe break that up just a little bit, like that. Okay, so the shore is still coming around. It's not necessarily a bowl right there, but it's not the way There. Okay, so I think you understand what I'm saying. All right. Then this line in the rock over here, and I know rocks get that striation. Well, you'll suddenly have like a vein of quartz or marble or something like that in the rock. But I feel like the rock is you have this almost like a shadow here. So like this, where am I at? Do I have the right color? No. You won't be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, so it feels like this part is one area of rock, and then you have another area of rock right here. And yet that line goes straight on across both of them. So I would be inclined to take that color that you have there and disrupt that here, and then take that and pull it maybe up a little ways, up into this area, so that it's as if we can go around behind, and then it continues on in the rock again out here. Does that make sense? Rather than a straight line all the way across. And that gives us then the feeling that that rock is, and not quite as strong right here where you're getting close to the shadow area, but it gets stronger as it comes out towards the light. Does that make sense? That way we feel like we're actually going back around, and there are two different sets of rocks there. And I think those are really the main things that stood out. You've got just some really beautiful work in here. Okay. So let's go to Deborah. Okay, these background trees, and here we go again. Let me get my color. I wish I knew a fast way to do that. I don't. People have been giving me some little tips, like getting the pictures to size up. Those have been so helpful. I love that. I'll learn some new tricks to Photoshop as I go along that will hopefully speed me up in the future. And maybe this summer I'll have some. Nah, probably not. That's when I will be outside painting all the time. Okay, someday I'll learn Photoshop more than I know now, little by little. All right, so this bank of trees back in here. Wow, you've got just beautiful changes of color temperature and color variety, light and dark in there. That is excellent. I love it. And the reflections that you have in the water too. Beautiful. Just so much that is fun to look at in all of that. So a couple of things that stood out. For one, we got the feeling that you were at Yellowstone National Park or somewhere like that, because it feels like this is one of those areas. We love Yellowstone. Went on a camping trip there with our kids when they were young, and we lived not too far from there. So I've been there quite a bit. And so we love all of the different things that they have there. This feels, though, rather than, it almost feels like you want steam, like over on this side over here. It's kind of steamy in that area. But then this whole line right here is so strong, it feels like water is being jetted up into the air and completely obscuring what's behind it. So if that is the case, I don't know. I'm not familiar with an area where it all jets in a line like that all the way, that long of a line of water going up that way. There might be something like that, but that's what it feels like. So if you did not intend that to feel like a jet of water, but more like the steam, then coming in with some of the colors that you have in here and pulling some of those down into what you have in this area will help it feel a lot more like steam. Just toning some of that down some a bit. Just like what you have over here, really. So take some of that and pull a lot of that down into some of these areas as well, so that we get the feeling that it's not plumes of water, but steamed water going up into that, and then maybe some stronger areas pulling down into it. So and then these right here, show you. this one and this one are very strong reflections that don't have, I mean, I think they're coming from these trees back here, but they're very strong and geometric compared to everything, all these other really soft, natural reflections that you have in here. So just toning those down gently would help that. Just like, so that they're much more like what you have all the way throughout your reflections. Just like that. And then boom, that feels so good right there. So I love the way you've done your light and dark. You got the shadow areas here, so it really pulls us back into this area. But to have all that water, you've got some nice coloration in here with the salmon colors and the yellows and really light tones. But for such a big area of the painting, I'd be more inclined to want to see a lot more of the tree, all that beautiful color you have in these trees, more of that than just a big line of this bright that's back in there. So maybe breaking that up a bit would help. Even just in some areas like what you have in here. Okay, that was it. That's a beautiful piece, Deborah. All right, Carlo. This top rose stood out to me right away. I really like that top rose. And my tool got very big and no opacity. So this one right here, I really like the structure and the feeling of it. It's a beautiful rose. And your warm and cool color temperatures that you have in the leaves as well. Beautiful work. So this rose right here feels a little bit flattened. And it's mainly because you have some highlight edge on some of the petals. But overall, it's kind of the same value from here to here. So from side to side, like that side to that side, it's the same value pattern. But changing up something, like taking even some of that and pulling some of that color down into areas where I think your light source is coming, actually, I'm not really sure. It might be coming from the left here. So if it is, then except that, okay, so this right here, I'm not sure what that is. If that's a shadow being cast by this rose, because it's a little bit different shape. It might be that because of, sometimes the angle, we don't see exactly all the angles of that flower right there. But it feels like a shadow coming from one of these flowers. And I'd be inclined to take that out. It almost distracts from all the other beautiful work that you have in here. And way too much opacity. Okay, so it's almost pulling away from, because you got some beautiful color in your background colors all through here. So toning that down would help not be so distractive, and it would help pull the eye to your flowers again. There we go. That's already better. Now, so if that was a shadow, that means your light's coming from this direction. And I think that's the case because you have the shadow on the back of this rose and the light over here on the right side, which works really well. So doing the same thing to this flower is going to help with that. Same thing with this flower. You've got a little bit where it's darker here and lighter up here, but this one just has a much nicer light and dark pattern to it than what you have done in these flowers. So just building that up a bit, like even bringing in some of the light, lightening up some of the area here on this side of it. And not the way I'm doing it. You'll want to come in with the way you do your light and shadow in here. But just to quickly pull that out, and maybe that a little bit. So you got this lighter area, and then you have a shadow area. That way you can build that structure up a little bit differently. And let's see, was there anything else that and then you have this one highlight, this one leaf right here that nobody can see me doing anything with. Okay, so you got that one leaf right there that has this wonderful highlight on it right there. and then the shadow. Although if your light is coming from the right, if your light's coming from this direction, right, then your highlight is on the left and the shadow is on the right. So you might want to think about that a bit. I love the way it works, but you want to make sure your light source stays consistent. But taking that same, you have that one right there, but you don't have it anywhere else in the painting. So maybe taking that kind of highlight and just pulling it into some of the other areas. So let's say the light is coming and from the right. Well, we'll say that the light's coming from the right. Pull some of that kind of reflection, or highlight, down into some of the other leaves that you have in here. Maybe a touch right here where this leaf comes and overlaps that rose. You know, that sort of thing. Not everywhere, because we certainly don't want it to become a dominant thing. You want it to be subtle through there, but just to kind of do some subtle play with that light and shadow here and there, with just a highlight once in a while in your leaves. Okay, so beautiful job, Carlo. Excellent. Doris, this has a wonderful expressionist feel to it. I really enjoy a lot of the expressionists from the 40s and 50s, and the way that they have that vigorous brushwork. So you've got some fun brushwork, and I would not want to discourage that at all. And I like the way that your shadows, or sorry, the reflections are working down here in the water. You've got some excellent reflections in there. The thing that I'm, it almost takes away from the rest that you have in here, because, let me get my color. All right. And this one is much bigger picture. Okay. So you've got all this beautiful work going on in here, and even over in this area, and the way that you transition in tone from the blues down into the greens below. So all that beautiful work gets overshadowed by these really strong blues in the sky. And I understand the desire for that, because a lot of expressionist work will do that, where it's disrupted by something jarring like that. But it almost feels to me as if, because they're so angular and almost like symbols in there, that it is out of harmony with what you have in the rest of this. This feels very much like an expressionist landscape, and then this almost feels like something that isn't, that is different than that. So just taking and coming in with what you have in the other places in there. In fact, I'm going to use the clone tool. That would be better. So doing more of your textural stuff rather than just a sudden dark color in there would probably help that a lot more. Does that make sense? Let's see. Pull this up into here more. Like that. Like that. So it's not as strong, because you already have some very strong colors in here, very strong light and dark, but those just are, it doesn't let that sky go back at all. It really is pulling it forward and taking up the attention. And then you have this drip of paint right here that comes down that I'm not sure what that is. So just eliminating that like that is going to help pull us then down to back into here more. And that may be a little bit strong for that spot right there. So just now that starts to then pull us down into your water and move us back into up into the sky again. Same with the whites that you have over here. We have as artists, we often like to leave areas unfinished, but usually that's like on the peripheral areas. And when I say usually, it's because there is no, this is the way you should do it every time. But these almost feel as if you just didn't get to those parts rather than something intentional. So there might be some like areas of rock, like a little cliff areas of rock or something that are in there, but eliminate maybe the white. So it's not like these areas right here, carrying that through instead of being such strong white in there. I would experiment with that. You know, don't necessarily eliminate those spots entirely, but play with the idea and see if it helps pull the eye more into what you have going on in here and in some of these other areas, so it doesn't distract quite so much that way. Like that's a good way to, I like the colors that you have in there. I'm just experimenting right now, not necessarily telling you to do this. I was just trying to see what it would look like if we did some of that in there. Pulling that up. So you could still have some disruption in there. Like that. Those trees. So it's like some rocky areas in there, but not quite so strong. So experiment with that and see if that helps at all. Okay. That's it. Maybe, well, you know what? I don't know, because you've broken it up. There is kind of a strong line that goes right here. You have broken it up in some of these areas. Oh, no, that's not what the tool I wanted. So like you've done a nice job of breaking up that edge. So possibly there, but it does help to pull us down into this area. So I wouldn't necessarily eliminate that. Maybe just soften out something like a spot here and there in it, just so it's not quite such a strong line all the way up and down it. Does that make sense? Like that. Okay, there we go. Next, Christine. And if you see that the pictures are different, I did crop all of these ahead of time so that everyone could see the pictures much better than what we've had in the past. And then the picture, I can just double click on that hand and it fits it right in here. So now, okay, Christine, sky and these sunset colors in here, beautiful, really nice. And the water, as it comes down, you have the bright right here that pulls us back towards your sunset or sunrise. I think it's a sunset. It looks like it's going into, I always assume it's going into the west. So I love the way that the light is here and it pulls us into there. And yet these colors get dark and you still have those nice, you actually have color in here with the blues and the pinks and salmon colors. That's beautiful. This moves us up in towards the sunset really well. So excellent. And I like the all the work that you have in here. So the things that stood out, I would almost be inclined, this is kind of like a square right here. See, it's like you've got a square right there. So that feels a little bit out of sorts, the way it comes to a point there. I'd almost be inclined to completely eliminate it. Let me see if we can do that. Starting here. Oh. And this isn't going to work incredibly well right here, and maybe not necessarily eliminate entirely, because you could have, but break it up quite a bit like that, so that it's not as strong of a square shape there. And maybe just like a little patch out here even, and the water still comes all the way across here. You know, not the way I've done it, obviously. Hopefully that's obvious. But, you know, that sort of thing. Maybe just a little patch right there that helps lead us in, but the water then, because you have such beautiful coloration in your water that I just messed up for you, sorry. But that beautiful coloration, if you can take that and pull some more of that into there and pull us up into it. And then I think that this get back to my other tool. I think that this area and this area are sandbars, but the colors are so close to what you have in the water that it almost feels like water right there. So I'm not sure. I think what it is, I'm not sure if you should change that dramatically. Maybe since it's a sunset, making it darker than what you have the water so that the water is reflecting. We see really clearly that the water is reflecting the light that's up in here. But then this, it feels like getting darker like you have here. So it's like sand at night or in the evening with just maybe a touch of some light up on the top edge of it or something like that. Not nearly, that's terrible. Do I have that on? Oh yeah, I have it on strong opacity. I didn't realize it was so strong. Okay, so not as strongly as what I did there, but just a little bit. And then maybe pull some, you've got these wonderful grasses that go up all around in here. Maybe pull some of those grasses up into some other spots, just like up over the top of some of that sandbar stuff, like that. Okay. Anyway, just play with the sandbar, just so unless it is water that's flowing into there, like a kind of a swampy, marshy area, and it might not be a big deal. It might not even matter that somebody knows whether it's water or sand or whatever. So, but playing with that a little bit, maybe, or just think about it. But this right here, I think that would help in that area. Okay, let's see. Beautiful piece, Christine. Okay, Harriet. Let's get back over here to the red right off the bat. I remembered. Okay. Really pretty colors in your trees and in your shadow areas. I like that from the previous photograph that you had, that you darkened your sky. That worked out wonderfully because it really helps to, rather than the emphasis being on the bright sky back behind, it helped to really pull us into the trees that are here. So that's excellent. And you have so many beautiful colorations in your shadows and light in here. Now, the things that I'm wondering about is I'm not sure the direction of your light. And it feels like these shadows are coming from these trees, but I would imagine they're coming from trees that are over on the right side of the road rather than from these trees themselves, because your light source is coming from the right? Your light source is coming that direction. So I would imagine that these shadows are coming from, oops, didn't get rid of the whole thing. Trees that are from the other side. Or I also thought it almost looks like these areas right here, they look like water, as if which would match the sky that you have here, as if the storm is just passed and we have water left over. But your water is basically all in what feels like shadow areas. Rather than water out here in the light areas, you just have water in the shadow areas. So maybe those shadows are ruts in the road. And so that's where the water is pooling into there. And that's what that is. But the way that those ruts come over into, like this one, the way it moves over into the darker shadow area in here, makes it feel like it's just a shadow coming from an object like a tree. So I would work that out a little bit differently. So I like the idea of this being some water that's left over. Like that, but maybe pull some of that water into some of the areas that are in the light as well. So it's not water, it's just shadow. Okay, then, well, that's something to think about, that it could be water, as if it rained. So if it's shadows, then the color temperature of it, and Harriet, do not get overwrought about whether it's water or shadow. The reason it feels like water is because of the color temperature and the value of it. It changes abruptly from the lavenders. So I would take that. I love the color of it, the light blue, but it would be easier on you, or it would be less complicated to just turn that into lavender shadows. So if the shadows are coming from trees that are across the street on the right, which feels like that's where your light source is coming from, then they would get lighter actually as they get to this hill and darker as they come from the other side. If there's shadows from these trees, then your light source would generally have to be on the left side, creating a shadow, and you wouldn't want to do that. So I would suggest that you treat it as if there's a row of trees just like this, like we're going down a tree-lined road. And so the trees that are on the right side that we don't see are creating those shadows, and take the darker that's over here. Let me get that opacity correct. Take that darker shadow color starting on this side, and then work its way across with the lighter as it gets over here towards the hill. And then coming up the hill, it's still light as it goes up the top of that hill. See? So you can take the darker shadow over on this side like that. So you're just changing it. Oh, don't get so dark as you get farther away like that. That's way too dark for back there. Or like that. So here we go. We've got the shadows coming across just like that. And a dark shadow down here at the bottom. That helps. Having a dark area down at the bottom of a painting like that can really help to lead the viewer into the painting, because we don't get stuck here. We go towards the light. We're always going towards the light. And then soften that out with the lighter as we come farther away from those trees. Does that make sense? Just like that. And actually that does feel, it does have a good feeling to it when you get those lighter tones in there. And you could even take some of that blue color, if you want to keep some of that blue color going, use that in the shadows as they get farther away from us. And more of the lavenders, stronger lavender color as we come out this direction. And then you get some of those blues left in there, but it doesn't feel like water in the painting. Does that make sense? Okay. And you can still keep some of these even, stronger. You can get them dark in here if you want. Okay, it sounds like my time is up. Let me see. Is that the... Oh, and one other thing. I feel like we're going back into the distance pretty rapidly. Like the trees are getting far away from us quickly, because you go from the bigger tree trunks here to much smaller tree trunks here, but the line of the trees stays about the same. So just taking and reducing, in fact, I'm going to clone that real quick. Whoa, that's huge. Okay, so we're going to clone here, and over here, actually, we're going to reduce down some of the sides of this tree back here, just like that. And this one maybe a little bit, not so much, but that idea. So I ruined this one right here, but just making some of these go smaller as they go back, like that. There we go. We'll break that up a little bit. Anyway, going back like that a little bit. And I love that this one is over here on the side, because that helps us so we don't just go right on out of the painting. So that's an excellent disruption to that line of trees right there. And you don't have to have it. I need to say that even though I'm out of time. You might even have one, because this group is kind of close to each other, have one a little bit taller, and maybe this one that comes down a little bit more into there. See, like that. So it's not just a strong line all the way down. There can be ups and downs like you have right here. You've got this one that's a little shorter, these a little taller. That's excellent. So I would take that same idea and utilize that as you go back into those back there. Okay, great job, Harriet. Beautiful, beautiful painting. All right, I have to take a drink real quick. Sorry, I have water. Okay, Bev. I love it's very light and painterly, and I love your sense of distance as you go back. As we move back in this direction, you got a great sense of, we've got the warmer colors down in here, and then as we go back, you get a little bit cooler here, but it's still warmer than what you have back here. So that moves us back in the painting wonderfully. Excellent job. Let's see. The things that I might change or work up a little bit would be, you've got all this great coloration change in your leaves in here. And I talked to you about this a little bit before. So if we take, but I can show you here now with this. So if we take like some of the leaf color that you have right here, maybe, and pull that into an actual leaf that overlaps the grasses. Whoa, that's too strong. One's too light, one's too strong. Okay, so here we go. Go over the top of that. There we go. So like, so that you have a leaf here and there that comes over the top of your grassy filled area right here. So that there's a separation between the bush of the peonies and the grasses that are here. And then your peonies, they're basically the same value. You have some change right in the very center of it. But as far as a light source, knowing that the light is on either the left or the right side, let's say our light source is coming from the left. Well, then you'd want to have a definite light source. I mean, definite light and shadow pattern. Oh, that's terrible. Sorry, give me a second. Pull that up some. Nah, it's a terrible color for right there. More like that color in there. And create some petals in here, some of these other areas that are not so much in the light. So you get a variety, just like you've done with some of the other spaces in here. Like you've got this shadow down in this area with your leaves. Do the same thing, not as strong, but still light and shadow in your peonies as well. And that peony video from when I did my peonies for this paint together, that will be ready, I think, not this month. I think Stoic Barn is going to be the one we'll have coming out the end of this month. And then I think next month is when we'll have the peony video coming out onto the monthly membership site. So you can watch for that. Okay, so changing up, getting your light and shadow on your peonies. And even some warmer, like you have on this one, some warmer peony highlight on the edges, on some of the edges of these petals in here, will help to really pull those peonies away. And then here, you've got kind of an outline around this flower. So making a strong delineation between the peonies and your background will help to pull those peonies up off the ground and push the background down behind those peonies. Okay. And this right here, I would maybe make a change to these two, like make one or the other smaller. So because they're both the same size, they're like twins right there. Just change up. You've got really nice, like this one right here. This right here is a different direction towards us. You have the side of this one right here. This one is pointing up more. So you've got good variety of change in those. And then these two are very much a lot alike. So maybe just shrinking one of them, making one smaller, that sort of thing. Or bringing a leaf even over the top of one could help. You know, like, oh, that was the wrong color. Anyway, bringing the leaf over the top of one of them, even that sort of thing can help. All right, there we go. Good job, Bev. Beautiful work. Okay, Earl. This is really a nice painting. You've got such a wonderful sense of light and shadow in here, and all the colors and everything. So much fun happening in your painting, and just beautiful color. The changes between let me get my other one, between that area and some of your other areas. Excellent. Excellent. And then your fence back here, Christy and I both noticed that this feels very natural. Just has that, we don't question it at all. We know that it's a fence and it all works so well. You've done a great job of creating shadow and dappled light coming across it. So excellent job on that. The things that might help with this is, okay, so this tree right here comes to a point. It's like you took a pencil sharpener to that tree and sharpened the bottom of it right there. Okay, so pulling some of that color down into here, down into the plants, will help that a lot. You don't have, you can break it up with like the leaves of the plants coming over it, but not such a strong, sharp line going down in there. And he's a little too blue. Okay, and then back here, so you have such, okay, there are a couple of things. This one is not something to really worry about, but maybe play with it just a little bit, because it's kind of an ambiguous transition between those two, the tree back here and the tree right here. So possibly strengthening the dark shadow like you have right here on the tree that you have in this area, so that it comes over the top of the tree back there and pushes those trees back and pulls this tree forward towards us. You know, that sort of thing might help that. And then these trees that are in the background back here, I would be inclined to possibly take this one out like that, because I know it does help us to go back in there, feeling of distance, but they're so big that they're really not far enough away from us to become that blue. So maybe take this color, this back here, and turn it into like a bank of trees that are off into the distance that take up that whole area, almost like a hill or a bank of trees that are back in there. So you have that purple color that pulls us back in there. And let's get rid of that. And then maybe, you know, soften out some of that with some of your clouds coming over the top of it, that sort of thing. And then take this tree, and what color? Some of these more greenish, not so strong. I want to lighten that up and gray it down. So the greenish blue color, pulling that into it. So it's not quite so strongly blue, such a saturated blue. And that will help to push that back and yet still not demand so much attention. And then maybe some of a little bit darker into it too, like that. I don't want you to necessarily lighten it entirely, but that sort of thing, pulling it back in there. Does that make sense? Okay, I think that's really what stood out to us. See, yeah, that feels good back in there. And then maybe pulling a little bit of this over the top of that so that we still get that feeling of overlap. Overlap is what I'm looking for. That feeling of overlap is really important to create depth in a painting. There we go. It's like, I need a dark. So just like that, just some overlap. And then that pushes us back into there. Not like I did right there, sorry. Okay, that pushes back in really nicely, but it helps. We can go back in there and feel the distance, but we keep our attention right here rather than being pulled back to those really saturated blue colors. Okay, beautiful job, Earl, really nice. And we are getting Close. How far long have I been going? Oh, I've almost been going 2 hours. Oh, I have been going 2 hours. Okay, it's a good thing Chrissy keeps me on track at all. All righty. Oh, let's see. Sorry. Daryl. Okay, and Daryl, I have a picture for you. Let me show you this. Okay, so this Aurora Borealis right here, that is beautiful. And being from Alaska, I love the Aurora Borealis. In fact, my first week, it was I was just about to start my freshman year of high school when we moved there. So I think it was August, and that it was that first night, or maybe the second night I was there. That first week I was there, we ran outside, and boom, there was the Aurora Borealis just in all of its glory. So I love the way you've done this. It's very, very nicely handled with soft transitions between the brightness and going off into the sky. So excellent, very natural feeling in there. So we found some pictures here though that might get, so I'm very familiar with the Arctic trees and the structure of them and how they grow. The permafrost up there makes the trees stunted in their growth. They're shorter overall than what you'd find in other states because the ground is always a little bit frozen. And so the trees never have their true growth, but they do have the leaf structure, or the pine structure, the needle structure on them. So I got a couple of pictures here to show. See, they still are very full in their the leaves. Now this reminds me of what yours. When I saw it, I thought, I was wondering if maybe it was a bank of trees, a field of trees where the trees had gotten in a forest fire kind of thing is what they look like, because that's what these are. These are trees that have gotten into a fire and they've been burned up. So this sort of thing where you get the snow and there's a little bit more beefiness to them. See, they're still smaller, they're shorter, but they still have enough meat to them that they can hold some snow on there. Even if you get into, and that's not my image, obviously, but I was trying to work quickly to get you some images here. See, even these have stuff to them, even when you get into these more stark ones like that. So pulling some of that into these would make these feel a lot more natural, like what you have in your sky. And then take some of what you've used with the way you did the light in your Aurora Borealis and do that same thing with your snow. Because what you've done with the snow up in these areas, because the snow down here, you've got some really beautiful transitions of color and value in the snow down below. And then you get up into the trees and you've kind of treated both sides of the trees the same way with the same kind of structure. So take what you've done up in here, and you can even take some of this color and reflect some of that into your snow, especially, oh, that's too much. This is more. Oh, you know what? I want more of the blues. There we go. The brighter, maybe like that. And pull some, that's too much. Not so strong. Get a little bit more grayed out. Pull some of that blue color into some of the back areas of the tree and cover up, even bring some of that into areas that covers up some of the trunk of the tree as it goes up. And then take your nice warmer, like I'll grab some of your snow. That's what I should have done. Use the snow color. Grab some of your snow here and build up some of those areas a little bit more. And that'll give those just that feeling of more tree, like they're really, the trees are still alive and there's plenty, they're going to be coming back as soon as the snows have receded a bit. Take some of your nice cool snow that you have down in here on the side that's away from the light source that way. Okay. And I do like the way that you've got some of your trees here that are more lit as we come towards the viewer, and then they fade out as they go off into the distance. You've done a great job with that. Okay, so I think that's the main thing that I would concentrate on in there is just filling out some of these trees a little bit more that are here close to us, and the cool and warm, warmer on one side, cooler on another side, and even the light side here could be catching a lot of the reflection, those greens and yellows and blues that are up in the Aurora Borealis there. All right, so there we go, Daryl. I hope that was helpful. Nice, beautiful job. One other thing, maybe soften out some of the strong arrow points, the way that these come to a sharp point with your snow. So like this one has a really nice soft rounding to it and transition into the water. So I would be inclined to maybe take out some here and there, soften them down a little bit. Okay, and there's my cue to move it along. Like this, you have 1, 2, 3 that kind of all go in a pattern there. Break that up a little bit, like you've done right here. You've broken this up so nicely here. I would just maybe break those up a little bit. Okay, great job, Daryl. Okay, we've got Zita, and I really like this painting. You've done a great job. The figure, the proportions, the anatomy, it all feels natural. Things feel proportional. So I don't have any. Now I did a lot of figure painting. I was trained in figure painting and all of that, but I haven't really done much in the way of any figure painting for 30 years, 25 years, I guess. So I'm not one to comment a lot on that, but just from the perspective of being human, it feels natural. So nice job. I love what you've done with the figure in here. And all of this is very understandable, readable, makes sense. So the things that stood out, and I love the way that the painting moves back into the distance, off into these nice soft greens and then into the sky. That all feels natural. It moves us back there very well. The things that I'm not sure about, I actually don't know. I believe this is a figure or maybe two figures like what we have right here. And I think those are probably figures moving, like they're moving off farther away, but they're kind of hard to read. So I would almost be inclined to have a solitary figure here and not have some of these other things in here at all. Just take out some of your bundles. Maybe have one here that helps to move us down. Maybe a little figure off over this direction to keep us going into the distance, if you want to experiment with that. But these were all lumped up together right here, and they kind of take the focus away from the figure over on the right, your main center of interest. So I would experiment with that a little bit, possibly taking out a lot of that. And then this right here, let me get it so you can see what I'm pointing at. This right here is a strong triangle shape right there. So softening that down, even just breaking up the shape of that a little bit will help that. So it's not such a hard line right there, and pulls the focus a little bit more than, again, on to the figure right here. And maybe you have such nice soft breakup of edges in a lot of this area here. Maybe just a little bit of that right here on that edge back there, so that that's not quite such a strong hard edge back in there. And actually, where it comes down in here, when you get areas like in trees where you have leaves that are coming together and the sky is coming through, it's the same concept. When two areas come together like that, a dark and a light, they actually create a middle value tone. So as they come together more and more, it will actually darken the closer it comes to the point. So making this little spot down in here a little bit darker, and I'm losing your stuff here. So as it comes into this point in here, that's where you want it to get just a little bit darker in value than as it comes out away from that. Okay, then it doesn't stand out. It doesn't pop forward as much. All right. Otherwise, I think that's it. Great job, Azita. Elizabeth. Okay, and I think you said that you took a cue on this one from Joanna. She's a brilliant flower painter, and you've done just a great job in here with these beautiful colors. We really like the color tones and the softness in here. And the pot too, it blends really well. It's not distractive. It harmonizes with your flowers beautifully. So the one thing that stood out dramatically is this. Let me get a color you can see. Is this flower right here is very long and bright. The combination of that takes away from, it doesn't allow us to really look at the rest of all the beautiful stuff that you have going on in here. So I would be inclined to take and make this a lot bigger and make that smaller, maybe even up into this area here, so that it kind of matches a lot what you have going on with the other flowers in here. That makes sense. Oh, no, these blues are much nicer than maybe that blue in there. There we go. Get some of those in there. And then possibly some of the warmth that you have here in the background, maybe pull, oh no. Pull just a little bit of that into some of your whites. Just a touch somewhere in those whites to warm that up a bit. You have all these cool lavenders, and white is already a cool color naturally. So just pulling in some warmth into your, in fact, let's get that a lot brighter in warmth, and like that will help to give you that warm and cool play of colors between all of the lavenders and then some warmer whites in there. Let's see, let me get even a bit. That's getting cooler yellow. I want it to be nice and bright. So just take like just a touch of cadmium yellow medium or cadmium orange, so that you can barely discern it, or even some cad red light or cad red medium mixed into white will warm it up. You can get a really bright white, but it's a warmer bright white that way. That kind of thing, experiment with that, and just to add some highlights in here with that on the white flowers, maybe in a couple of areas in there, that'll help, because you have these beautiful warms in your background, and it would be nice to have some of that in that big white flower right there. Oh, I can't see any comments if there are any, because I had it covered up. Okay, let's see. And that was it. Those are the main things that I saw in there. I really like the painting. It's a beautiful painting. Okay, so we'll go to Young. Sorry, I needed to get a drink of water. My voice is starting to go a bit. Okay, Young. This is a beautiful piece. It's really a finished painting. The whole thing works so well. Beautiful color, beautiful value, light and dark all through it. The trail here leads us so nicely back into the distance, where we feel like I feel like I just want to walk through there. So just very nicely done. And such a variety of colors. You've got the oranges and yellows and greens and salmon colors, just lavenders in here. You got it, and they all work really well together. They're not overstated. They're not they're not, oh, what is that? Oh, that word, they're not sappy. Starts with an S though. Don't be, oh, crumb, can't think of it. Oh, well, anyway, it's right there too. So close. Okay, so the thing that stood out is right here. And I'm gonna get rid of it right off the bat. See this? Oh, let's see, that's why we're down at 9% opacity. Getting rid of that branch right here. It's kind of like it just doesn't belong. It doesn't feel like it's natural there. Everything else, this one, look at this branch here, right here, feels so natural with the shadow, the texture in it, the way it goes from the darker into the lighter area out here. So getting rid of this little branch down in here helps that. And then you have this tree trunk here, or this tree that's just off there in the distance. And that feels like it's going back in there. And maybe pull even this one up into there a little bit. Same thing with this one over here. It feels like it goes to this tree trunk back there that's back behind everything, and yet it's coming forward. So I would take some of the lavender that you have here and push that back so that you can still see that there's a tree back there, but it's lavender, and it pushes back behind everything rather than feeling on the same plane as the rest here. And then maybe take some of these leaves and pull them over the top of that a bit so that you push that back in there like you've done with the others here. And that's it. That was the only thing that really stood out to me that I would change in there. And now this branch pulls us back in here. This one moves us along through over to these, and everything just pulls us down into this area. There's nothing distractive here to take away from what you have in here. So it's a really idyllic looking setting there. Okay, Barbara. So the sky and these reflections are beautiful, masterfully done. The leaves that you have in the trees here, that is excellent. So the thing that stands out to me, and I'm not sure exactly what to do for it, because I don't want the painting. You've got so much nice stuff happening in your painting here. Really, it's a beautiful piece. It's just that the water feels like it's sloping, you know, like those infinity pools you see, and then it drops off, and you're looking out over a vista or something. You're up on you're up high, and the infinity pool just goes, it looks like it goes forever, and then it drops off. That's what it feels like right here. It's like you're going up, and then everything back behind it drops off back behind it. There's nothing on the sides over here, nothing out. We're going right up into the sky. And if that was true, then this is sloping upwards, and the water would be flowing down towards us. So in order to flatten that out and make it feel like it's coming down, you almost need this into the sides, something in the sides that pulls us back in there. And that might be just from breaking up the side edges that you have here. And that's where I say I don't really know what to do to get that to not feel as if it's floating or going upwards. See, if you had something back, and I don't want you to lose, I like the yellows that are back in there too. So I don't necessarily want you to lose that, but that's almost what it takes to, and that's really badly done. I'm trying to do it quickly here for you just to get the overall feeling. And we need to pull a little branch back down in there. Let's see. Pull that into that and bring back some of your branches, that disappeared. So bring some branches over the top of that, but something to pull across so that either the water continues on the sides and not obnoxiously like I've done here. You obviously know how to do water well, but even maybe some of the dark colors that you have in here so that it feels like there's water off in the distance or in the sides so that we're being pulled over into that area. that makes sense? And then you can take your branches over the top of that again, your tree trunks, sorry, to put those back into their place. Like that. But anyway, that's the one thing I'm just not sure how far to go with that. You know, what exactly to do in that area. Maybe just even taking some of this and taking an area here and there that moves off to the side. It moves off away. And I've lost all your reflection, but you get, I think that gives you the idea of what I'm talking about with it, at least. So that it's not all the way ending like that in a U shape right there. And let's see, that really, I could not see anything else that I would change about the painting overall. It's, you know, it's beautiful what you've done here. So that right there, just breaking that up a bit, even maybe just taking it off one side or the other might work as well. So, okay, next. Shirley. And, oh, this is our last painting. Okay, it's good since we're going on 2.5 hours. This is very well painted. So this lower third, let me get my tool back so you can see what I'm doing. Oh, you know what? Actually, a brighter color might actually work better on this because you already have a lot of reds in here. So this is obviously a big file. This lower third right here is brilliant. Everything in here just works incredibly well. I love the texture, the light and dark, the colors, the light, light and shadow that you have in here. So I assume this is your light source, and because that's the way it looks with your pomegranates. I think those are pomegranates. They look like pomegranates. Yeah, they've got to be pomegranates. And the shadow from the shoes inside the shoe, it feels like it's in the shadow, but you've still got colors in there. You've got all the subtlety that people who paint from photographs, usually those are the things that they lose. They don't, this is what we don't see in a photograph because it just becomes dark. And yet you, Shirley, have captured all of that color that's in the shadows. And so excellent, excellent job. A couple of things that I'm not sure about in here are, one, this pot right here, the shadow, see the pomegranates, they feel like, except for maybe a little bit right here, your light source is coming, I assume, from here. So the light would probably start more in this range. Oh. See what I mean? Because the light source is coming from here. So it's going to come down onto here. You're not going to necessarily have the light out here unless the light is coming from the top down. See, if your light's coming from the top down, you can have more of that coming out that direction. Otherwise, it'll probably come more back that way. I like the way that you're doing your shadows, going from, you're getting the warm, cool, warm kind of thing going on there. So that's excellent. Don't lose that. And then your pot here, great. I love the flowering cactus, the Christmas cactus, I think is what that is. Great use of warm and cool tones in here, light and shadow. The pot itself, the drawing is a bit off. Right here at the bottom, it needs to round a little bit more there. This part and this part should match up, basically, and then kind of round around this direction. So bring that down just a little bit right there. So I didn't get the drawing. It's hard for me to do that with a mouse, but that drawing was just a little bit off on that. And let's see, what else did I have in here? The roses, you have got so many transitional tones in your light, between your light and shadow in all your other objects. And then in your roses, and the soft edges that you have all through here, like this, where it goes from one to another, and you have areas that are lost and other areas that are sharp. So in your roses, they're almost, it might just be that some of the hard edges that you have all the way kind of outlining the roses a bit. It makes them feel a little bit flat. So just coming in with very soft transition in there, and even pulling some of the rose color out a little bit like that to soften an edge here and there in your roses will make those feel more natural back in there. I like you have a stylized feeling to a lot of this, but those need to be softened just a bit here and there in an area. So they're not all, you don't have that strong shadow on the outside of all the edges. Does that make sense? Okay. I think that is it. We have covered them all. All right. So any questions about anything that I've said in there? And feel free when you're in the comments to disagree with what I'm saying, because oftentimes that will trigger something and I'll think, oh, you know what? I am wrong right there. That doesn't make any sense at all. Kind of like the one earlier on in the critique where I suddenly realized that what I had written down didn't make a lot of sense to me. So what is Christy saying? That I need to end this? I don't know. Oh, sorry about that. Put the camera on me. Okay, stop sharing. You're sharing, stop. Okay, there we go. There, that's good. Okay, so anyway, let's see. Doesn't the flower pot need a shadow? Flower pot, oh. Frida, that's a good thing to point out. I was assuming that because this is like a blanket that's on there, that, oh, you don't see it now. Crumb. Anyway, I was assuming that the blanket had like one of those parts of the blanket that's coming up a bit on it. But really, yeah, you're right. A shadow right there coming off of that might be a really good thing to have on there. But the shadow is going to be a lot more to the left side of it. It's not going to have nearly as much shadow as the objects that were over on the left side of the painting and in the middle area of it. So that shadow is going to go a lot farther off to the side there. But really, you have that, she has that shadow that's on the pot itself coming down it. So pulling some of that down to that blanket would be a great idea. Nice job, Frida. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, any other questions about anything? I think, did Christy say something about the next webinar? Have the next webinar details out next week. So watch your emails. Okay, that's going to be that'll be definitely at the end of March, because we're going to be gone. I think we're leaving here on the 6th and we're not getting back till the 18th. We're going to be gone for 2 weeks. We're going all the way out to Monterey, California to see our new grandson and for a baby blessing. And then, but I'm going to be painting along the way so that we can get some stuff for all of you to enjoy from our trip as well. I think that's it. Any other questions or anything that anyone has before we close up the webinar? Thank you, everyone, for the beautiful paintings that you sent in. Really nice work. And let's see. Aha. Light was from the lamp. All right. Good job, Shirley. Nice to see you, Marcia, or to talk with you. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Excellent job. I enjoyed all of your paintings immensely. And we will, I guess, talk to you on the next webinar and on Facebook. So I am in the middle, if you can see over here on my easel, I'm doing a commission painting right now, a pretty good sized one. So that'll keep me busy for a little while. But I will be getting on as much as possible. And I also have a lot to get ready as far as so that I can make these videos and stuff. I've got a lot of preparations for that. So I can actually come back with some things that you guys can use as well. So I've got a lot of stuff to get ready that way. But I will be getting on Facebook here and there as I can and making comments. But I do get on there. I want you to know I get on there often just to scroll through, just because I enjoy seeing your paintings. I just don't always have time to comment as much. Fortunately, Christy gets on there and does that for me. So all of you have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. I'm going to be heading out here in an hour to go to Fort Wayne and see this Valentine's show. Going to be a lot of excellent art there. So if you're in the area, come on by and say hi. And have a wonderful rest of your Saturday then. And we'll call it good. All right. Thanks.